Season 4 of Big Mouth is finally here, and so is the start of 8th grade for our favorite Bridgeton Middle Schoolers. Despite successfully surviving the previous semester filled with heartbreak, betrayal, over-sexualized musical numbers, and self-discovery, Nick, Andrew, and the rest of the gang will have to navigate even more important topics this year, like racial and gender identity, coming out to your parents, changing schools, and the dreaded summer ritual of group showers at sleepaway camp. I'm Whitney Van Laningham, and this is my spoiler-free and spoiler review of Big Mouth Season 4. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our super nerd sponsor of the day, Kevin Brown, for supporting us on Patreon. Like I said, I'm going to separate my review into two parts with the spoiler-free section up top. Don't worry, I'll give you plenty of warning before I start my spoiler review. If you don't want any of Big Mouth Season 4 spoiled for you, hit pause on this video and come back when you're all caught up. Now onto the spoiler-free review! This season of Big Mouth splits its time between summer camp and the start of the next school year. So the first few episodes take place at Camp Mohegan Sun, a location rife with hormones, insecurities, new monsters, new experiences, and important life lessons. Many of us spent our formative adolescent summers at sleepaway camp, so expectations for relatable moments this season were high going into it. Although they covered important topics at camp, some lessons felt rushed or half-baked, and might have been more impactful if the season wasn't splitting so much focus between these two major locations. The new campers are a fresh addition, and I wish that some of their storylines didn't have to be as brief as they were. Sure, the abrupt departure of some of these new faces only made the camp aspect feel more realistic. IRL, you might never see your camp friends again, or you might not see them till next summer. But in practice, this pacing cheapens what these flash-in-the-pan characters bring to the table and might leave you feeling whiplash. Before we go any further, I'm going to tell you this. If the graphic humor and animation from previous seasons has made you uncomfortable, this is not the Big Mouth season for you at all. I can handle most poop, vomit, and blood jokes like a champ, but there were a lot of truly disgusting moments this season that made me feel viscerally squidgy. So if you get grossed out easily, brace yourself before watching. And a heads up for anyone who feels weird about watching sexually active cartoon children, several characters do start to engage in physical intimacy this season, so be prepared to hit the fast forward button if that bothers you. Don't get me wrong, when the laughs hit, they hit hard, and this season might be the funniest yet. The brutal honesty about the good, bad, and ugly of puberty is what this show does best, and from that honesty comes a brand of relatable humor that's truly unique for television. But the boldness of some of these jokes dance over and even outright cross the line several times throughout the season. In some instances made me question whether giving a group of comedians the safety of a multi-season pickup was the best idea. The jokes were inarguably bolder, and the laughs were some of the biggest the show has ever had. But Season 4 was not at all for the faint of heart. I know that diehard Big Mouth fans who live for this kind of humor will continue to watch the show, but I do think some of these episodes will be extremely polarizing for fans who already felt uncomfy. If you already thought that this show was too much, trust me, Season 4 is only going to solidify that opinion. Despite this let's see what we can get away with attitude, the show does try to lean into addressing the previous criticisms it's faced before. Last year, the writer's room came under fire for its lack of diversity, and you can tell effort has been put in to broaden the voices and perspectives the show offers. While I think your mileage may vary with how effective this ultimately is, I do think it shows that the writing team is intent on making the educational aspects of the show both responsible and inclusive. By far the biggest controversy addressed by the show this season was that of Jenny Slate stepping down from her role as biracial Missy Foreman Greenwald after stating that the role should be given to a black actor instead. Although Jenny's voice and sense of humor will be missed, I think we can all agree that she made the right choice for Missy. Ayo Edeberry transitioned into the role in the last two episodes, so although she's officially part of the show now, we're going to have to wait until next season to really see her in full-scale action as the character. All of the Missy-centric plotlines were more front-loaded this season, so in episode 10, she's there, but she's not the #1 focus of the episode. Which is honestly a bit jarring, if only for the fact that this big transition between voice actors is lost between a series of emotional revelations for a slew of other characters. The transition does make sense in context of Missy's arc for the season. I just wish that the moment wasn't overshadowed by the same beat played out across the entire cast. Another common criticism of last season was that it didn't have nearly enough magical creatures and hormone monsters. This too has been addressed by giving us plenty of new monsters and lore. We also get cameos from previously established monsters, helping to flesh out the immersion by making good on the depth of world building it had promised in Season 2. Unlike the previous season, which spent a lot of its time focused on adult storylines, like Andrew's mom and the menopause banshee or Coach Steve getting queer-eyed, this season had minimal adult interference, instead focusing on the kids and their struggles. This return to Season 1 form serves the show well, but it does unfortunately mean we get a limited degree of Coach Steve. Alright, that ends our spoiler-free section of this review, so if you haven't watched Big Mouth Season 4 yet, hit that pause button. I'm about to talk about some real spoiler-heavy shiz, so this is your final warning. Get out now if you want, and come back once you've honored the gratitude. When we last saw Nick and Andrew, Nick had kissed Missy despite her being Andrew's ex, Andrew freaked out about it, and the two decided to stop being friends before departing for camp. Once they get there, Andrew steals Nick's camp best friend Seth and alienates his former pal with humiliating nicknames and brutal inside jokes. Nick spends the summer refusing to shower for fear of having his dick made fun of and having panic attacks with his new monster pal, the anxiety mosquito, while Andrew learns the hard way that holding on to your anger can manifest in physical consequences, i.e. pooping yourself in front of all your friends. Although their journey to becoming friends again had its moments, I was more interested in Natalie and Jesse's camp storyline. Like, I would trade the poop madness B-plot for more Natalie in a heartbeat. One of my favorite aspects of Big Mouth is the way it educates you on your own feelings and actions in specific situations, like when a friend comes out as trans. And although the episode did have a decent trans conversation, it left me wanting more. I loved that they included this character, but I wish that they had continued the conversation in a positive direction throughout the rest of the season instead of just ending it at camp. Why couldn't they have had Natalie go to Jesse's new school? Then we could at least keep in touch with her character. If she's only someone they all know from camp, I'm worried we won't see her again unless they do another summer special in the future. The lessons we learn from Natalie are some of the most valuable. Like, for example, if someone comes out as trans, please, for the love of God, don't start asking a million questions about their genitals. And don't assume things about their identity that they haven't expressly communicated with you. Until she starts hanging out with Jesse, nobody else at camp really treats her like a regular old friendo. And the show does a good job of portraying what it looks like to have that conversation empathetically. Jesse's summer camp plotline, however, felt a little redundant to me. She already got her period at the Statue of Liberty. I didn't really need to see a second hugest period ever story. The second one didn't really bring new insight, just additional fodder for humiliation. So although a giant pad soaking up the entire lake is hilarious, I was kinda like, why is Jesse the only one who ever has period drama? Why not give it to someone else for a change? Once the setting returns to Bridgeton Middle School, with the exception of Jesse, a private school in the city, everyone appears to be coupling up. Now that they're friends again, Andrew and Nick are determined not to get left behind in the girlfriend department. So they start dating two 7th grade girls named Izzy and Misha, played by Anna Conkle and Maya Erskine of Pen 15. Their cameo was the highlight of the season for me, and if you're a fan of Big Mouth but haven't yet watched Pen 15, cancel all your plans tonight and watch that show. It is the perfect early aughts period piece and should be required viewing for anyone who survived junior high. Jesse's new boyfriend is a high school freshman in New York. Despite the fact that he's supposed to be a year older than Jesse, Michelangelo gives off major older douchebag vibes. And when she's not dumbing herself down to get him to like her more, he's wallowing about the agony of having the kind of excruciating blue balls that only a preteen handjob can cure. I 100% remember dudes at my middle school talking about blue balls like it was gonna kill their entire families if no one stepped forward to offer a heej, so this storyline cracked me up. Split between Jesse's attraction to Michelangelo and Nick's newly discovered attraction to Jesse, Connie makes the painful decision to leave Nick and become Jesse's hormone monstress full-time. Honestly, I'm not really a big fan of this choice. It kind of feels like the writers didn't think through what would happen if a single hormone monster's two charges were to start dating until they ran into this problem. Even though they make up and are on good terms at the end, I still feel really bad for Nick. She completely abandoned him because she was spread too thin at work. That's not fair to a kid who has already been through a monster change already, and I'm not really sure where they're going with this. Likewise, Jessie's moving story felt a little half-cocked to me too. We really only saw her at her new school for one episode, and then the future episode happened, followed by Jessie's parents telling her that she could move back to Bridgeton. They could have done so much more with Jessie in the city, and she's already back. Instead of fleshing out her independence, they built up her move as this horrible thing over the course of 4 episodes, and then she was only actually in New York for like 2 weeks tops. I didn't get the sense that she had really grown as a person by being there, other than the fact that she'll probably be more cautious about dudes with man buns who demand handjobs in the future. I would have liked to see Jessie continue her friendship with Natalie, experience a different puberty body horror than just her period again, get into some real NYC teen hijinks, and have more perspective by the time her mom and dad decide to let her go back to her old school. The very special 9/11 episode had its ups and downs. Devon's song explaining code switching to Missy was pretty great, but overall, the ep felt like a really awkward 28-minute long 9/11 joke that didn't fully land. The meta-commentary of Matthew's flippancy was a sarcastic wink from the writers to older generations. When he's like, ugh, none of us were even born when 9/11 happened. It's supposed to feel grating to millennials and Gen Xers, while actually resonating with younger generations that really weren't around for it. I get what they were going for here. The mockery of a school's bleak choice in field trips, a plot point to get the kids from the suburbs to the city, an ironic look at an event in American history that was, in hindsight, not even as deadly as COVID-19. I get it, it's supposed to be funny, but I think that they went a little overboard with trying to trick Coach Steve into believing that they were at the Freedom Tower to celebrate his birthday. Somehow equally disturbing were some of the jokes made when the show zooms ahead to 2052. Like Nick hosting a game show that forces poor people to do inhumane, horrible things in exchange for having their basic needs met. Once again, I get the satirical edge of the joke, it just left a bad taste in my mouth instead of making me laugh. I have a pretty gross sense of humor, but I think engaging in incest to save your dying mom from cancer might be where I draw the line. Nick's arc in general this season was a bit of a miss for me too. Call me weird, but I just don't think the fear of ending up an emotionally void game show host is relatable to most people. Dying alone, sure, but the whole Patrick Bateman meets thin Drew Carey vibes Nick had going on here were oddly specific, and just didn't resonate with me this go-around. It was fun, however, to watch Nick Birch duke it out with Nick Starr while the Gratitude and Tito had their kaiju battle. It was pleasantly surprising to watch Jay and Lola fall in love. Although they have similar home lives and personalities, I guess I just never pictured either of them as steady relationship material. But actually, they might be one of my favorite animated couples of all time. Who knew that Jay could be such a good listener? They're actually really sweet and protective of each other, so I hope they're able to repair their relationship next season. Although I think we all know their fights are gonna get ugly. Another surprise for me was the fact that Matthew's dad was the supportive one when he came out to his parents and finally told them about Aiden. Usually in media, the mother is portrayed as the understanding, supportive one, while the father shakes his fist and says something like, "No son of mine will ever join the ballet." It was refreshing to see that role reversal this time around. And even though this season was focused a lot more on the kids than their parents, the song that Matthew sang about his mom showed us a deeper look at his relationship with her in a way that didn't feel too heavy-handed. Overall, Season 4 of Big Mouth wasn't the strongest in my opinion, but like I said, it did have some solid jokes. Jesse's moving eyes, the proctologist won't believe, and the CB radio jokes still have me giggling. As I said, I think structurally this season made some strong changes that brought back what made the first season so strong, like the focus on the kids and all the monsters, and I'm hoping it continues down that path next season. I'm actually very excited to return to a season that just takes place during the school year with the whole cast in the same location. Plus, as long as the F Gremlin comes back, I'll be super happy. These are just some of my thoughts on Big Mouth Season 4, but I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe to Nerdwire and stay tuned for more Big Mouth videos.